here, everyone. It's I guess my third time in Zurich. I was here a couple of times back in the, mid-2000s for the Best of MMS Roadshow. And I always enjoy running around and trying to chat. Thanks to Marcus and Mirko for getting me here and setting up your event, and glad to kick it off for your community. What Mirko had asked me to talk about was a couple different things throughout the day. One of those is an overview of ConfigMan 2012 R2. So before I start this, how many of you guys are still running ConfigMan 2007? Don't be shy, raise your hands. Raise them up high enough so I can get a decent count. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 10, about 10. How many people are running ConfigMan 2012 RTM? So no service pack. A couple, okay. SP1? A whole bunch. And how many are already on R2? Okay, I'm going to pick one of you guys to do the presentation then, since you already know what you're doing. So we released ConfigMan 2012 RTM way back a couple years ago now. And it was at MMS a couple years ago that we released the original release of the product. And then it was less than a year later, that same calendar year, we released Service Pack 1. And we made a lot of changes between the RTM product and the Service Pack 1 product. And traditionally, those of you that have been around with Configuration Manager or SMS days long ago know that we traditionally don't release that frequently, 2 releases in the same calendar year. And it was usually 3 to 4 to maybe 5 years between releases. And then, so we released Service Pack 1, and now we've released R2 just about a year after that. So we've been getting to a little more frequent release cadence, and that's to get you guys better capabilities, new features, improvements in a more quick time manner for you. That doesn't mean we're going to keep doing that type of cadence going forward, because we know it's hard for people to adopt releases every year. It takes a long time for you guys to go in there and do all the work you have to do to validate the release and get your stuff upgraded and so on. So that may not happen, but anyway, that's where we are now. This presentation is going to walk through the key things that we added to R2, and basically it's here to give you the answer, why would I as a corporation want to take the time and investment that it's going to take to move from ConfigMan 2007 or ConfigMan 2012 Service Pack 1 up to this R2 thing. This presentation is solely concentrating on the on-premise solution, which means just your Configuration Manager environment. We added a lot in the R2 space as well for integration with Windows Intune. And in this presentation, I'm not going to talk about Windows Intune at all. There's other mobile device presentations this afternoon that'll cover that. So I'm purely going to look at the on-premise stuff. And then later on this morning, I'll talk about how do you upgrade. How do you get from where you are today up to this R2 thing? And even those of you that are already have R2 in place, hopefully there would still be some valuable information in there about future upgrades. Because R2 is not going to be the end of the life of this product. So you're going to have to move from R2 to whatever comes next. And hopefully there's some things when I talk about the upgrade that when I poll people, they've never done before. And they're critical that you do implement in order to have a successful upgrade scenario. So that's where we're going to go. At any point in time you guys have questions, please feel free to ask. I'm here all day, so I don't want to throw off the schedule. But I'm here all day. Holler at me during breaks. I really would like your feedback. I have notepad and paper here, so if you guys have comments you want to make about we didn't implement because of this reason, or we tried to and this didn't work, or you need to add this type of a feature, please get it to me. I'll take it back, I'll file it as what we call a DCR, a design change request, to get it into our system, and then we'll look at it for future releases. So please do be interactive. I hate doing monologues. If any of you are old, actually, I don't see many old people out there. Johnny Carson, I'm not Johnny Carson. Jay Leno, David Letterman, Conan O'Brien. I'm not a monologue guy. I like interactive. So please do be interactive. I also like to joke around. So don't be offended if I say something that some people laugh at and you don't. I'm not meaning to offend anybody. I just like to have fun when I'm presenting. So anyway, we'll jump in. So basically, this presentation is just to get you familiar with what's in the R2 release, to give you some incentive. Why would I want to spend the time and investment to upgrade? And I'll do as many demonstrations as I can on these features to fill out the time frame I have. I got just under an hour to go. Okay, so these are what we call features that will benefit everybody. So all you guys should be able to take these things on this list, implement them today or as soon as you get upgraded to R2, and be able to take advantage of it. And they should give you good reasons why you would want to upgrade. And in my opinion, the first one on the list is the number one reason. If it was me and I had ConfigMan 2012 RTM or SP1, which I wouldn't be on RTM anymore, I'd be on SP1, I would use number one as my main impetus to go ahead and upgrade to R2 right away. Oh, and by the way, I talk no slower, and I only speak this type of English, so you're stuck with me. So I will, if I ask you guys a question like how many are running something, I'll give you a moment to digest my version of English and get it converted into Swiss, German for you guys, and then let you respond back. But when I ask a question, I would really like your feedback on things. So role-based administration and reporting. And I got individual slides in each of these and demonstrations. Then we'll talk about distribution point updates. Everybody has DPs. Some of these changes will be applicable to some of you. Some of these changes won't be, honestly. They'll be for larger environments which you may not have here. In a lot of Europe, a lot of places outside the United States, you don't have the scale size units of environments that we have in the United States. So I'll talk about those. Resultant set of client settings. So the ability of seeing what settings I'm applying to clients very, very easily from the admin console without having to dig through log files or try things out or run some other tool. Software update specific maintenance windows. The ability to really control when your patches are being applied, specifically in a server scenario. So you've added that. A couple of changes to automatic deployment rules. Easier ability for you to automatically have us do your patching for you without you having to do a lot of manual efforts on a monthly basis. And then being confident in what you're deploying with those automatic deployment rules. And then lastly, a bunch of stuff we changed in operating system deployment. That'll be beneficial for people. If they're coming for me, I'm running. So my guess is they're going to outrun me, though. OK, so role-based administration reports. For those of you that said yes on ConfigMan 2007, and even those on 2012, you probably came from 2007, you know the security system we have, which is not great. You have to go out there and work with these class rights and these instance rights and groups and users and try and figure out what you need to tell us, how you configure things to allow your admins to do the work you want them to do, which is really, really painful. So in the 2012 release, we spent a lot of time scrapping that old security system and going to this new role-based administration model. So now you can take a template, which we already created for you, add a scope to it, add a user to it, add them to a collection, and really limit what they're doing in the console. This will sound wrong, but I'm going to say it anyway, what damage your admins can do to you by using this role-based administration. And it works great. This is one of the number one reasons people with a hierarchy were able to collapse their hierarchies into a single standalone site now with moving from old technology to the 2012 release because of this role-based administration. It works great everywhere except for reporting. So if I was an admin and I could look at the console and I could only see one collection that I administered for my workstations, for example, but I ran a report to see my patch compliance, I'd see patch compliance for all my workstations and all the servers, which doesn't do me a lot of good. It throws my numbers off, because all I care about is my 5,000 desktops. I don't care about those 200 servers. The server guy, when he ran that same report, he would see all 5,000 desktops, as well as his 2,000 servers that he wants, or 200 servers he wants to look at. So reporting was not tied down to the role-based administration. You saw everything. So that was one reason people would still implement multiple primary sites so they could do their reporting off of the unique sites and only see what they needed to see. So now in the R2 release, we've added or extended role-based administration down to the reporting level. So now you should see in your reports the exact same thing you see in the console. So if I only see a collection of desktops, my report shouldn't expand beyond that collection of desktops. So it's much, much easier for you to do your reporting. And I can show you that quickly, hopefully. And client primary site. OK. So this is my R2 site. And let me go. There we go. And let me change the screen resolution since we changed it on me since I had initially set this up. so we don't have to scroll as much. You guys can see a little bit bigger. And I think with all that other stuff, I forgot to load zoom it. There we go. All right, so this is my R2 site. For those of you that haven't played around with R2 yet, oops, sites. This is your build number. So as you guys are looking around, you'll see that the version is 7958. So that'll help you out because you're at SP1, you're 7804, 7711, or whatever it is. Anyway, so we have the administrator or the security system. So I have these built-in user called administrator who is logged on when I install the site. He's a full admin, has access to everything. So in every report I run, I should see everything. I've added two other admins, desktop admin, who only has, I'll go ahead and add this on for you, collections. The desktop admin only has access to one collection called desktops. I had another user, server admin, who only has access to the server collection. So exactly what you want to do. I want to separate my desktop guys from my server guys. I can very easily do that. So if I go to IE and I run a report and I want to find all the clients that I have by version, I go ahead and run this report here. It'll go ahead and launch off that report. And first time you launch a report off, it takes a moment, so we'll let him process. I'm going to go ahead and launch the console in the context of my desktop admin. So I'm going to go ahead and launch console, context, oops, I didn't need to do that. I'm going to say desktop admin. And one of the very cool things with the R2 release is the console adapts automatically to the logged on user, what contexts they are, what rights they have, what scopes and collections they have access to. So if I go to device collections, I only see the one collection. I see desktops. I don't see all systems. I don't see all servers, all the other collections. So very cool. I want to go run that same report. So I go to monitoring, I go to reporting, go to reports, and it goes out there and filters out the reports I have access to. And I go down, it was computer count of computers ain't there. And the reason being, I gave him a security role that doesn't give him rights to this report. And you guys have this today in ConfigMan 2012, RTM and SP1. You could do this. But if I did have access to that report in SP1 and RTM, I would see all systems, is what the report scoped to. So, but we have that built-in security system to show you only the reports you have access to, but you see what's in all those reports. Oops. Now if I go back to IE, there's my full report. And you see it says I have one client running 7958. If I go ahead and kill this, launch IE again, just as server admin, and I'll show you my security system again here in just a second. Server admin, and run that report. He sees one client, and actually that was the first guy. If I run that same thing as administrator, administrator instead of server admin. So that was a server admin. If I run it as full admin, who has access to everything, all systems, run that same report, I should get 3 clients. So you can see I have 3 clients, because I see all systems. Server admin had the one collection, all servers, which is 1. Desktop admin can't even see the report because he had a different security scope, or security role. So just if I finish that off for you, go back to security. Oops, that's the desktop admin. Desktop admin can't even see it. His security role doesn't allow him to see the security system. So now you can see that the desktop admin is a application administrator only. Application administrators don't need to see the report of all clients that you have. So the built-in security system filters out the reports, but the role-based administration feature in R2 now filters out the result of the report for you. So you only see what you should have access to. So that's a great win. Gives you much more confident reporting and much more logical reporting for your administrators, seeing what they only should see. And you can do this for your own custom reports, because you guys have all created custom reports. You're not just using our built-in 488 reports or whatever it is in R2. You have your own reports, and you can implement them for RBAC, as we call it. It's a special, just a function you call inside the reporting feature. So very, very cool and easy to do. Okay, distribution point updates. Everybody has DPs. Anybody have an environment with more than 50 DPs? A couple of you? Very good. So in ConfigMan 2012, well, 2007, we support 100 DPs per site. And for the vast majority of you guys, almost everybody, that's great. In ConfigMan 2012, we bumped it up to 250 DPs per site. But in some environments, that's still not enough. We have some customers in the United States and worldwide where 250 DPs in a site is not enough. So they would expand out to secondary sites to add another 250 DPs. So that's the most common reason people would add a secondary site, was to scale out more DPs. And you can go up to a total of 5,000 DPs in a single primary site infrastructure. And I haven't found anybody that the 5,000 wasn't enough for them. So we're good there. In Service Pack 1, we added a new type of distribution point called a pull DP. Anybody implementing pull DPs? One? Couple? Three? Okay, very good. So a pull DP is a unique type of DP that instead of the site server pushing the content across the wire to the pull DP, so a site server push process, it's a pull DP goes up and acquires the content and copies it back down. So one of the advantages of the pull DP is that if I have multiple DPs at the end of one WAN link, let's say I have a remote office where I want to put 3 DPs out there, with a standard DP, and I want that content in all 3 DPs, my site server has to push it over that WAN link 3 times, once each DP. With a pull DP, I can have it pushed across that link 1 time, and my other 2 DPs can pull it from that DP that got pushed to. So the content only goes over the WAN link 1 time. So that was cool. It reduces the site server processing, so we expand the number of DPs per site to 2,000. So now you can have 250 standard DPs and 2,000 pull DPs, which I know it's way beyond what you guys want. But there's still some people that's not enough in R2. So but we do allow you to have 2,000 pull DPs now. In SP1, that was still 250. So you'd have 250 standard DPs, 250 pull DPs. But now going to 2,000 pull DPs, that helps me reduce the need for those secondary sites. And our goal as a product group is that you guys only ever have a single site, a single primary site. We really don't want you to have multiple primary sites, a central administration site, and try and get rid of secondary sites if possible. It's a lot better for you, it's a lot less expensive for you, and your infrastructure likes it better with the single primary site. So we try and reduce things, and pull DPs help us reduce that. You can cancel or retry a failed distribution. So I won't ask you to raise your hand because I don't want you to be embarrassed. But how many of you guys have ever, or one of your admins, let's say, has gone in there and taken a really large WIM file and decided to put it on a remote DP and found out, oops, that's over a 64K link. It's going to take 12 months to get out there. And you want to cancel that job. And there's no way of doing that. And I see heads nodding. I won't point to any heads that are nodding, so you're safe. There was no way to cancel that. Now in R2, you can right-click that in-progress distribution and say cancel, and we'll stop that distribution for you. Or you tried to distribute some content to a DP and it failed. You go look at the log files and you find out the failure is because of a security thing. Somebody changed the rights on IIS, or the hard drive got filled up on the DP. So you resolve that issue. You don't want to wait for our 30-minute timeout to retry your pushes of distribution. You can right-click the failure and say redistribute right now. So you have a lot more control over the distribution process as you're going through and managing your DPs. So the better performance stuff is just what's getting us those 2,000 pull DPs now. So we just made some changes in how we process our distribution points and how we look at the content on them. So that gives us that better scalability. We're not changing our standard DP support, still 250. More DP threads. So for those of you that had environments where you had like 50 DPs, in the earlier releases of the product, we only gave you like 7 threads for working with distribution points and packages. Now we give you 50. So you can work with many more distribution points at the same time. And so your end result of getting that content out to the DPs where you want it should be faster for you. Better scalability. Oh, over WAN stuff. The WAN stuff is we're trying to be more intelligent on how we distribute. Let's say you have 5 DPs that you're putting content on, and they're over different WAN speeds out to different remote locations. What we do is we randomly pick a DP, start working with it, and then we'll go ahead and wait till that one's done, then we'll go to the next DP. Well, if we randomly pick your slowest link, it's going to be a long time before your faster link DPs get updated. So now what happens with R2 is on a distribution process, we track the performance of the site server to that DP. And then we'll rank them from fastest to slowest. The next time you distribute to those DPs, we'll look at that ranking and we'll go to your fastest DP first. And then we'll go down our list down to the slowest DP. So we're going to try and hit the faster ones first, which should be your on-premise DPs. So your local clients should be able to get their content faster than the clients in your office in Bern that's over a slower WAN link. So we're just trying to make things more efficient for you. And something that people have been asking for a long time, distribution point usage report. Let me see how many clients are accessing my DPs. Do I have too many DPs? Do I not have enough DPs? Are they in the right locations? Are my DPs working? Today it's really hard to find all those things out. And now with R2, we give you some capabilities of determining some of those factors. So first off, if we just go back to reporting, back to reports, and it should be logged on as a full admin here. And then go down to software distribution, content. There's a new report in here, distribution point usage summary. You can just run that report. This report prompts you for what DP you want to look at, so you pick your DP. And it's going to go ahead and show you over 24-hour periods how many clients have accessed that distribution point. And you can see there's not been any access to this DP, but it would show you the number of clients that have accessed right here. Oops. How many processes, and if I scroll off to the right, it shows you how much traffic there has been. So if I look at this and say, wow, no clients have accessed this DP in the last X number of days, either I've got my boundary set wrong and this DP is not the correct boundary group, so nobody can use it, or maybe IIS is busted on that DP and nobody can access it. So I want to go out there and do some troubleshooting on that DP. If I run this DP report and it says, wow, 1,000 clients, I've only got 200 clients in the subnet, I shouldn't have more than 200 clients accessing this DP, I probably got my boundary set up wrong again. So I can help determine whether or not I have the correct DPs in the correct spots now. This runs as a scheduled task every night at midnight on your DPs. So we implement it as a scheduled task now with R2. If I want to go out there and cancel a distribution, you go to distribution status, go to content status, and I don't have any failures in here, but we'll just take this package. And it's only 173 megabytes, but assume that's 173 gigabytes. And oops, went to the wrong DP. But if I go view status, I'd have this in progress tab here, and it would have my DP that's sitting there being in progress. And again, I don't have one. So I'll just go back to success. I would right click, and I would say redistribute or cancel, whatever's appropriate. In progress would be I want to cancel it. I don't want this content going to that DP. So I can do a cancel, that will stop it. If it was on the error tab, and I figured out what the error was, again, security or disk space or whatever it is, I would go ahead and go to the error tab, go to the failure, right click and redistribute, and force us to go do our work right now. So make things a little more efficient for you. And the last thing I'll show you is if I go to my sites node, go to my site, go to my software distribution component. Here you can see the number of packages we can work with simultaneously. And this used to be max, I think it was 7. We now max it out at 50. So you can do a lot more stuff with your DPs at the same time now, because you can increase the number of threads you have for processing packages on your distribution points. So that will help you out. And the last thing I'll do, since some of you do have pull DPs, is that let me go and add a new DP real quick. Member, I'll add it to the site. I'm going to make this a distribution point. We do allow you to install IIS automatically, but we added this in R2 as well. The ability of configuring branch cache for your distribution point. so you don't have to go into branch cache on the server and enable it. We'll go ahead and do the enabling of branch cache for you if you want to use it. But anyway, I'll go ahead and select that. And now if I want to make this a pull DP, I just select the checkbox, click Add for my sources, and you can add multiple sources. These are the DPs my pull DP can pull content from. And one of the things we changed now is the ability of ranking these. Right now they're both the same priority, which means we're going to randomly pick one of these two DPs to pull our content from. But maybe I know primary one's local and client one is a remote DP. I just want it as a backup. I just change its priority to 2. Now we'll always try primary one first as our source. If we can't get the content from there, then we'll fall back to client one to pull its content. So you can control where your sources are for your pull DPs now. So give you a lot more control over that. And I'll just cancel this. I'm not going to go create that DP. Just want to show you what the process was. Okay. Resultant set of client settings. So for those of you that are in 2007 space, or when you were in 2007, those of you that came from it, a lot of times customers, they wanted to have different settings for servers than they had for clients. And there wasn't a real good, easy way of doing that in 2007. So a lot of people would create multiple sites. One site for servers, so they could have hardware inventory sent on a monthly basis and change remote control settings, and another site for desktops, hardware inventory on a weekly basis, and different settings for remote control. So you can control that. Well, in 2012, we like to have what we call custom client settings. I put those settings in a policy, and I assign that policy to a collection of clients. So I have a collection of my server systems, a collection of my desktops, have my different hardware inventory and remote control settings assigned to each one of them, and the higher priority wins out. So I'd set the default to what I want my desktops to have. I create a new collection and then a new policy just for my servers that change things and assign it. Well, if your clients were in multiple different collections that had multiple different policies of settings set to them, it could be hard to determine what was really being implemented on those clients. Because they get default settings, they get custom setting 1, custom setting 2, custom setting 3, what's going to happen? So it was hard to find out what that result was in the prior release. Now with R2, from the admin console, you can very, very easily look to see what your results are of those client settings. So very simple, and it makes people a lot more confident in what they're doing and what the results are going to be. So here's my client settings, and I have 2 client settings. So I have default client settings. So for those of you coming from ConfigMan 2007, when you look at this, this is your list of client agents in the console. Hardware inventory client agent, advertised programs client agent, remote tools client agent, power management client agent, and so on. You had individual client agents you would go and configure. Now you do this in one UI. And what's very cool for you is those of you still on 2007, here is your SMS def moff. So there no longer is that physical SMS_def moff file that you had to go in there with Notepad and modify Notepad and then have it process. You now do it through a UI. So much cleaner, easier way of modifying your hardware inventory. But anyway, so here I have hardware inventory set to the default value of weekly. So every 7 days, take hardware inventory. I also have remote tools. Oops, that's not F1, sorry about that. Control 1. And you see remote tools is disabled as a default policy. So we're not using remote control corporate-wide, and hardware inventory we're taking on a weekly basis. Well, for my servers in the data center, those aren't what I want. So I created a custom settings here, and my custom settings has hardware inventory on a monthly basis, because I'm not changing my server hardware that frequently at all. So monthly is fine. And I do want to have remote control turned on because of the fact that I want to be able to remotely connect up to those servers in the data center because nobody's logged on there, and I want to be able to do my troubleshooting and whatever. So you can have custom settings. And notice that we're, by default, going to go ahead and apply this to the domain configuration. Domain and public and private. And I have this deployed to the all servers collection. So I have this data center servers custom client settings deployed to the all servers collection. it has a higher priority. Priority 1 is higher priority than 10,000, so we'll apply the default settings first, and then anything with a number less than 10,000 we'll apply on top of it, and 1 being the highest priority. So it's going to get applied there. So this is pretty simple to figure out, because I only made 2 changes, and it's only going to 2 different places. Default, everybody, and then 1 collection. But you guys might have 7, 8, half dozen, whatever it is, different settings, and multiple of those might go into different clients. If I want to find out what the end result is, go to Assets and Compliance, go to my Devices, find a device. If I should go this way. I'll go to All Servers. Let me see who's in that collection. That's primary 1. So he's going to get those custom settings. You can now go to the ribbon, and on the ribbon, you can, or right-click on your client, and you can go to Client Settings and Resultant Client Settings. And now you see a UI that looks exactly like when you're creating your settings. And this is the end result of all those settings applied to the client. So now I change hardware inventory, and you see this computer is monthly. I enable remote control, and you can see it's enabled for the domain configuration. So you can see exactly what's going to be implemented on your client computer. This is not querying your clients. We're not going out there and touching them across the wire. We're looking at the database and looking to see who's in the collection that's assigned with these policies, and we're figuring out what the end result is for you. So that's going to give you, again, good confidence that you've got your things set the way you want to have them configured appropriately. And, again, being able to reduce the number of sites you have in your environment. Yes?
Are there any plans on actually seeing which client setting is enforcing the settings?
So David's question is here, if I go to the Home tab and go to Client Settings, go back there. So from the ribbon versus the right click I did before. And I made a change here. He wants, what his question is there any way of telling which policy that I created has changed this from the default of weekly to the default of, or to the custom setting of Monday? And it's not there today. I have filed that as a DCR based on other user group feedback. So I'm hoping that they will implement that. So that you can see, you might have a half dozen policies there, and where is it that I made that change? Right, yeah. So good feedback. So that's the type of stuff, you guys have that type of feedback, let me know and I'll write it down. Yes?
For firewall settings, endpoint protection, sorry, they are also cumulative with options that you can setting priority. Are there plans to give the same resultant policy set for endpoint protection policy?
Okay, so if you didn't hear the question was if you go over to endpoint protection, assets and compliance, and you go down to endpoint protection, and then you go to anti-malware policy. You can have multiple different policies here that are policy-based, that have priorities on them, and we merge them all down to your clients and looking for the same type of thing, custom setting, or a resultant set of settings there. And that, since we just kind of do a merge on there, but we don't have that same result for you. So are there plans? I believe that's been requested before, but I'll write it down and I'll make sure it is filed, and they do look at that for future. But no, there isn't that today. Okay, software update specific maintenance windows. This has come up a number of times for us that if you guys haven't heard, Configuration Manager is a product group. We now own Configuration Manager, we own Endpoint Protection, we own Windows Intune, and we own MDT, so the Microsoft Desktop Toolkit, Deployment Toolkit. So all those are in our product group. So we're no longer just the Configuration Manager team, so we've changed our product group name to Enterprise Client Management Team, so to cover all those technologies. And people ask, why is it Enterprise Client? Because you can deploy our stuff on servers. As you just saw here, I have servers in here I'm managing, and I have different settings and so on. And the reason being that we're a client-focused product group. Our charter as a product group is to manage clients. Our charter is not to manage servers. We do absolutely support servers. We treat servers as we treat a desktop. So in other words, we don't implement server-specific scenarios. And one of the most common server-specific scenarios we get asked for is cluster-aware patching. Cluster-aware patching. Yeah, let's try that. Cluster-aware patching. I knew it's those 3 words. So that's my American, not humor, because I was not trying to be funny. That's my American English coming out. Cluster-aware patching, to be able to controlling your patching process for clustered environments. And we don't implement that. And our answer is because we're a client-focused environment, and clients don't do clustering. It's a server scenario, so it's a data center scenario. Well, we have deviated, and this is where we've deviated. We implemented this feature, software update specific maintenance windows, specifically for that data center environment. Our customers, a ton of our customers manage servers with Configuration Manager. And one of the primary things you manage with Configuration Manager is patching. And servers, it's rather dramatic if a server reboots when it's not supposed to reboot. So you really want to be careful on when your servers are rebooting. So you need to know when your patches are being applied, et cetera. And in the past, you could create maintenance windows to control when things would happen. But maintenance windows were for everything. Everything could apply during a maintenance window. But you may have specific patching type windows that you need to have for, obviously, patching for your servers. So now we've added that in the R2 release. We've added the ability of creating maintenance windows that are specific to software updates. And if you do create maintenance windows that are specific to software updates, our patching process will only happen during one of those maintenance windows. It won't happen during a normal maintenance window you have configured. It will only happen during a maintenance window configured for patching. So I'm not going to take the time to show you the full end result of that, but how you would create them is you would go to your collection, and I'll go back to my server collection, go to the properties, and then go to the maintenance windows tab, and there aren't any by default. All deployments, and I'll take the default of Monday now, 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. And you can see the type down here. You have all deployments, which the default is, and we've had task sequences for a while, and now we add in software updates is the brand new one. So I'll take all deployments for this one, create that maintenance window, and that's for patching, that's for software distribution, that's for task sequences. All those things could run during that maintenance window. And let me create another one. Oops, software updates. And I'll say this is from 10 p.m. to midnight. And I'll say this is only on Sundays. But now this is going to be software updates. Now, this configuration, the only time a patch would ever apply is during this maintenance window right here. Even though I've got another one that's available for maintenance windows, because you have designated a maintenance window that's software update specific only, that's the only maintenance window we'll apply software updates to. Now you could have 2 or 3 or 4 different windows that are software update maintenance, and then we could pick whatever the next one is. But we'll only apply software updates during a maintenance window that says software updates. If you create one like that. If I did not have this maintenance window, so if that one's not there, then we'll apply them during your all deployments maintenance window. Or if you don't have any, obviously we deploy according to your schedule of your software updates. But we do give you that control now of controlling this specifically in those server scenarios. Because it's really bad if your web servers go down because of reboots and it's the middle of your holiday season or a big sales day or whatever it happens to be. So give you that, again, comfort level that you know when your patches are being applied. Now, one of the other things people didn't like with Configuration Manager when we moved to the Windows Server Update Services, or WSUS infrastructure for patching, is that WSUS had this thing called automatic approval rules. So you go to WSUS, say anytime you see these patches here, go ahead and automatically deploy them for me. If you didn't, you couldn't do that in ConfigMan 2007. Every single month, you had to go pick your 15 updates, run through the DSUW, answer those same questions over and over again every single month, and then deploy your updates. So WSUS was a lot easier because of those automatic approval rules. So in ConfigMan 2012, we added the automatic deployment rules. Basically, automatic approval rules from WSUS that we would manage through Configuration Manager. So that helped you with that monthly maintenance task. Well, there were a couple of limitations in there that we took care of in the R2 update. The most common complaint we got with the ADRs, and what my TAP customer would do, is they wouldn't trust the ADR and what it was going to do for them. So they would create an ADR, but they would disable the deployment. And I'll show you how to do this in just a second. So they would let us create the package of updates, the software update group, and the deployment, but the deployment wasn't active. And then they would go back after the ADR had run. They would go back and look at the software update group. They'd look at the package. They would look at the ADR and make sure it all looked good. Then they would just right-click and say enable, and then it was active. Well, now we've added something in the ADR that gives you confidence that the ADR is going to work the way you want it to. And that's the ability of seeing the patches that the automatic deployment rule is going to create for you, not create the patches, but put in the software update group and the package and the deployment. So you know exactly which updates we're going to deploy for you. And so you can just, we call it fire and forget. You can create it, let us do the job for you, and you have confidence that it is going to work the way you want to. Okay, so by default, there are no automatic deployment rules in the product. You have to go create them. So I'm going to go ahead and create an ADR. Call it Zurich. I'll pull in a template. So we do have a couple of templates built in, one for endpoint protection definitions and one for Patch Tuesday. I'll just take Patch Tuesday template. And the template just answers a bunch of the default questions for me. I want this to go to my servers, so I'll go all servers. And then I mentioned that a number of customers didn't trust us, so what they would do is they would disable this checkbox. So let the ADR run, let it create its stuff, but don't make it active. So they would disable it. Then once they did their own QA on it, quality assurance, they would then right-click it and make it enabled. Now you can leave that enabled. And then you go here, here's the updates you want. So you tell us what criteria of updates you want to see, and then we'll go ahead and select those. I'm going to go ahead and remove date, release, or revise for my demo. So all I have here is I'm looking for security updates. So in the current product, RTM and SP1, that's as far as you go. Then you finish off your ADR. You would know what updates you're selecting. Now in R2, we added this preview button. So this preview button down at the bottom. Let me see right now in this wizard what update's going to get chosen when this ADR runs. And so now you can go preview, and bingo, there's the results for your query. And obviously this isn't right. So I should think that I would want to select more than nothing. So I go back here and, oh, it's not security updates. It is, in my environment, it's critical updates. Or maybe I'll take service packs for this one. It's smaller. Take service packs, and now I do a preview. And now I get the results back. So now I'm seeing exactly which updates, as of today, this automatic deployment rule would select, put in my software update group, put in my package that I designate, and then deploy out to that collection of clients, all servers at whatever time schedule I listed for on the next page and so on. So I have that confidence that this is going to work properly. Now, of course, between now and the time the ADR runs, you could have sync with your WSUS or whatever your source is, and things could change. But at least you'll have confidence that you didn't screw up your rules. And most of the time it was having x86 updates, you don't want to deploy 64-bit updates. Or maybe it's Itanium updates, and you have no Itanium systems there, so you want to filter those out. So this gives you the ability of filtering those out and verifying that they have been filtered out properly. And then the next thing you could do in ADRs that's changed is, if I just go down to here, you're creating a new package. That when you created this package, when you created your ADR, you were stuck with this package forever. Whatever you designated here was you create it and you were stuck with it. If you wanted to change your package later on because it got too big, you had to delete the ADR, create a new ADR, looks exactly the same, just designate a new package, different package. Now you can go in here and change this after the fact. So I could run with this one package for a period of time, then I go change it to a different package if I need to change my packaging. So it lets you have that flexibility as well. Okay, OSD. We've done a number of things in operating system deployment as of our R2 release. The first thing, obviously, is the ability of deploying the new operating systems from Microsoft. So we let you deploy Windows 8.1 and Windows Server 2012 R2. The primary reason we came out with R2 when we did was to support the two new operating systems from Microsoft and the ability of deploying those. We want, and Microsoft says that Configuration Manager is the tool to use to deploy the operating system. And so we obviously have to do that. And that's why R2 came out so much more quick than we normally would, because the operating system came out more quickly than it normally would. It was on a year cycle as well. So we had to do that. We also do support down-level boot images. So what that means is, how many of you, when you move from ConfigMan 2012 RTM, and you're doing OSD great with RTM, you moved to SP1, and all of a sudden OSD broke? Anybody? A few of you? The reason for that was that the Windows team moved from the Wake, the automated installation kit, which used an old level WinPE 3.1, over to the ADK, assessment and deployment kit, which relied or is based on WinPE 4.0. And WinPE 4.0 wasn't compatible with all your hardware. So you had some older hardware that didn't have the appropriate BIOS attributes enabled to support WinPE 4.0, so OSD busted on you. And you were stuck. We were stuck. We didn't have a choice. We had to use what Microsoft made us use, which is ADK for Windows 8, in other words, WinPE 4. That's the only way you could deploy the new operating system, Windows 8. So we had to do that. And we're only allowed an ADK. Windows doesn't let you have the ADK and Wake co-located at the same time. So you guys were busted. And we were stuck in the middle. So our answers were, well, either upgrade your hardware, not an easy thing to tell people to do, keep around a ConfigMan 2012 RTM site, so you could deploy the old OS, Windows 7, out to your older hardware, and then use the new site with the new OS to deploy the new OS, Windows 8. So not a good thing. So as of ConfigMan 2012 Service Pack 1 CU2, and in R2, we let you import a down-level boot image. So now you can have the current version of the ADK installed on your site, which is a requirement, but you can import a boot image that supports older hardware. For example, WinPE 3.1. So now you can go ahead and deploy those old OSs to that older hardware and still have the support to install our product and the support for installing the new operating system. So I got 10 minutes, so I need to cruise along here. So all you would do is go to OSD. You see the default boot images. These are WinPE 5 from the ADK 8.1. So these are newer WinPE images. So all you do is go to Add Boot Image and path to whatever your appropriate source is, and lab files, and OSD files, and WIMs. And here I have two WIM files. One of them comes from ConfigMan 2012 RTM. Another one comes from ConfigMan 2007. And so I can go ahead and import whatever image I want to. And if I take the second one, I know that one comes from my 2007 environment. And so I'll say this is WinPE 3.1. Now I import that boot image. Now that the boot image is imported, when I want to deploy an OS based on that boot image, like a WinPE, or excuse me, a Windows 7 image, I would just go create a new task sequence, deploy an existing image package, and I'll say this is, oops, that one's done now, Zurich Win 7, and go to my boot images, and I just picked my down-level boot image. Pick my down-level boot image, and then I go ahead and import whatever the appropriate, oops, I got to create my operating system image. I go create my operating system image for Windows 7, and I go ahead and deploy it and finish off my wizard. So now I can have boot images for the current OS and older boot images for older OSs. So it gives you that flexibility and still being able to utilize a single site. So very cool that you have that capability now. And that capability was being written for R2, but we backported it to ConfigMan 2012 Service Pack 1 in CU2. So if you update your environments to CU2, you'll have that same capability today in your environments. Okay, I already told you that we took over the MDT product. So the MDT team went away. So they don't own MDT anymore. That team's been disbanded, and we now own it as a product group. So the same team that owns Configuration Manager operating system deployment owns the MDT technology. So we have stated publicly we're going to plan on maintaining MDT as a standalone release, as well as the integration with Configuration Manager. So in R2, we started with our native integration of MDT. So you'll see that we've took 3 different actions from MDT: check readiness, set dynamic variables, and run PowerShell script. We took those, or added those, to our product from MDT. It's not full MDT integration, but it's a handful of options for MDT. You can still go ahead and take the standalone MDT 2013, and you can integrate it with ConfigMan 2012 R2. That's fine, so you get that full list of everything that MDT can do. But these are native actions that came from MDT that we added into our admin console. And I'll show you that in just a second. We also give you the ability now of creating and managing virtual hard drives from Configuration Manager. Normally, you would create an operating system image. You would then deploy that operating system image out across the network to your physical computers. Now, if you want to, you can create your operating system images, but instead, you can have them create virtual machines. And those virtual machines go in our little library, and then you can go ahead and manage those, update them, kind of like offline servicing for our images. And then you can actually upload them to VMM, put them in the VMM library, and manage them through VMM if you want to. Now, in order to do that, your admin console has to be installed on a computer with Hyper-V on it. And we recommend you don't do that on your site server. So we don't want you having Hyper-V and doing these virtual machines on top of your site server, because your site server is doing enough the way it is for ConfigMan stuff. And then obviously virtual hard drive stuff is a little more drastic on the processing of that box. So take this off onto a workstation where you have Hyper-V installed and put the admin console on there and do that. So I can't really demonstrate the virtual hard drive stuff because I'm in virtual machines, and you can't virtualize Hyper-V. So I can show you where things are in the console, but can't really do it for you. So here's the virtual hard drive node. Wow, but it is there. If I did have Hyper-V installed on obviously my physical laptop I do because I'm running these in virtual machine, but I could right click and I could say create virtual hard drive, it's grayed out. And I can create them here. We also have a new task sequence action. Create task sequence. And there's this middle one here. Install an existing image package to a virtual hard drive. So instead of deploying to a physical computer like you would do up on top, you can now go to a virtual hard drive. And then you can go ahead and modify those if you wish. So that's there. For MDT, here I've got an MDT task sequence already created, or one with those actions in it. So this one's going to check readiness. That was the, from MDT. You could check your requirements. So you guys all heard about the Australian bank fiasco a couple years ago where somebody sent an image to all systems and blew up a whole bunch of things. Or it's fairly common, again, I won't ask you to raise your hands, where somebody takes, I've heard this numerous times, somebody took a Windows 7 image and deployed it to their Exchange servers, and people wondering why email doesn't work anymore. Well, if they would have used this type of an action in there, they could have verified that. Because down at the bottom is, ensure current operating system to be refreshed is, and if they were deploying Windows 7, they obviously would have set this to a client OS instead of server OS. And then that would have prevented that task sequence from running on their Exchange servers. So you have the ability of verifying some very simple processes here and attributes before you continue on. You can run PowerShell scripts in here, and we're going to run a PowerShell script. You can set dynamic variables. And here they're creating a variable called foo and setting it to bar, and then depending upon the results of a query, they might be changing the variable foo to bar1. And then if your the model is make is Microsoft and model is virtual machine, they're going to run a PowerShell script that's going to create a batch file for you. So if I go ahead and take this, and you can just, if I go create a new task sequence, make it generic, and if I go in there and edit this guy real quick this one, do an edit, you'll see these actions here just in the general. Run PowerShell script, set dynamic variable, and check readiness. So those are built into our wizard for our UI for editing task sequences. So they're just built in. Again, you can still go in there and integrate the full MDT if you wish to. But I'll go ahead and kick off this guy, and then we'll move along. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy this task sequence. I'm going to deploy this to my config-man clients collection, make it available, and just take the default so it's a available operation. It's going to take it a moment to create the policy. You would go and look at, if you're a log file kind of guy or gal, you look at policy provider, and you see policy provider says 12:56 a.m. I'm on Redmond time, so it's not 12:56 a.m. here. But that's the current date and time, so you can tell that the policy has been created because the date and time stamp of the file has been changed. You don't even have to look at the file if you don't want to. I'm going to go ahead and tell it to push that policy out. So instead of going and retrieving on the clients, I'm going to force it. So config-man clients, right-click, client notification. This is new in config-man 2012 SP1. Download computer policy, we added that in SP1. Now in R2, we add in download user policy. So you can force user policy retrieval from our admin console now with R2. And when I zoom out, I lose focus. So I'm going to go ahead and download computer policy. And we'll let that process. It takes it a moment to go retrieve policies, and I'll get the notification that something's available to me. So while that's happening, a couple more things. I've only got a couple minutes, and then I'll go back and finish off that demo for you. Just let the policy and process go. These are 3 things that may or may not be applicable to you guys. Just depends on the size of your environment and so on. Ability of reassigning clients between sites, multiple network access accounts per site, and the Mac client installation wizard. So I'll go to the next one, and I'll do both demos at the same time. Client reassignment. How many of you guys have a hierarchy with more than one primary site? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Hopefully that number drops in the future. We want you guys to be 0 to have a hierarchy, except for scalability. If you have more than 100,000 clients, you have to have more than one primary site. Anybody have more than 100,000 clients? David does. But it's a handful, it's more than a handful. At Microsoft, we manage 300,000 desktops and laptops and so on with Configuration Manager. Then we have another environment that manages a couple 100,000 servers. And we're by no means the largest environment in the world for Configuration Manager. So there are people that do have to have multiple primary sites because of scalability. But the vast majority of people, the vast, vast, vast majority of people don't have to. But if you do have multiple primary sites, and you do want to take a chunk of clients from one primary site and reassign them to another primary site, today you have to go and run a VB script or manually touch all those clients and change the site code and so on. Now with R2, it's an admin console function. So very easy within the admin console, you can go ahead and reassign those clients. So my new software is available here. Before I go do that, I would just go to my devices and say I want to take client 2. Oops, I'll take client 8. And just do a right click, and you have an action here of reassign site. Now in my case, it's grayed out. I only have a standalone primary site, so I can't reassign clients from one site to the same site. So it only works between sites in the same hierarchy. So one CAS, 2 primaries, and they both have to be R2 sites. Can't reassign from an SP1 site to an R2 site or R2 to SP1. So it's unavailable. But if you did have, it just goes out and basically creates a policy for that site, for those clients, saying, hey, you reassign over to the site over here. It would drop down with a list of your R2 child sites. And you go and pick a sibling site from this one. You go pick the site you want to reassign to. Very simple. OK. So we saw the balloon there. Let me go over to my other client image. Right here. Software is available. I'm going to go ahead and run. This is that task sequence. And here's my operating system, new steps. Going to install it. It says install operating system. Watch what happens. We launch off launching off check readiness, and then it fails. And the reason it fails is, remember the task sequence said operating system to be refreshed is server. This is a client OS. So immediately I just save my Exchange servers. Now in this case it's the opposite. I save your guys' desktops from being reimaged with the server OS. So very, very cool. We bomb that out right away for you so you're safe. If you go to your server and run that same thing on the server, oops, open Software Center, run the same action, install. Now watch what happens. Check readiness, running PowerShell script, set dynamic variables, run command line. So it ran and it was successful. So it passed all those checks. So it went ahead and ran that script, and that script said to create a file in the root of drive C called test. And it said, hey, this command line is executed only when the make equals Microsoft and the model equals virtual machine. So it did all the testing. It checked those variables that were set by the PowerShell script, and it ran appropriately. So you have a lot of control over what you can do with your environment. Okay, I know I'm out of time. I got 2 last slides and I'm done. Multiple network access accounts per site. So another fairly common reason people would have multiple primary sites is that they want to manage clients in untrusted forests. And in order to do that, your clients have to access the distribution point to get content. And how they access the distribution point is via their computer account. Well, if you're in an untrusted forest, your computer account's not going to be valid to access your DP. So then we try your logged on user account. Again, untrust, you're not going to have access there. So you have to create something called a network access account. Especially like in an OSD scenario, because using WinPE, which is not domain joined, and you're running a local system. Well, if you have multiple different forests that you have to manage, and they're all untrusted, you may not be able to use, and you want to put a DP local by those, in those remote forests, you can only have one network access account per site. And that one account would work for all those different clients in all those different forests. Now we let you go ahead and put in 10 network access accounts per site. So you can have multiple of those, and we'll go ahead and clients will just try the first one on the list. If it works, great. They'll use that one in the future. If not, they'll fall down on the next one on the list and just keep going down until they find one that works. So very, very simple. I'll show you that one in just a second. And the last thing is Mac Client Installation Wizard. So any of you guys manage Macintoshes? Nobody? Okay, then you don't care. Okay, so we give you a wizard now for installing Macs, but so I'll just show you that last thing on network access accounts, then we're all done. And you can take your break. Network access accounts, you go to sites, go to your site, go to settings, client, or component, software distribution, network access, use it, new account, browse from AD. So those of you in 2007, you can't do this. Can't browse from AD to get this. Oops, I mistyped my super secret password. There you go, password's the same. And now you can verify that that account is going to work. Go to lab files. Now I've verified that my account works because I've given it the correct attributes for that account, credentials. So I'm good there. That's as far as you can go in the current releases of the product. Now with R2, I can go in there and add another one. And I'm not going to verify this one. And now you can go ahead and move these up and down. The reason you move them up and down is you want to put the most commonly used one at top, because that's where client's going to start. And if you have an interop scenario where you still have SP1 clients in your environment, SP1 clients only know about a single network access account. So we're going to take the top one in this list and send that down in the policy to your SP1 clients. So if I know NA2 is going to be more applicable, I can move that up in the list and go ahead and rank those 10 accounts. Clients will try one. Just like your client push installation account, if we find one that works, we'll use it the next time as the best shot account. And so you can manage that. And that, again, can help you reduce your number of sites that you have in your environment. Okay, summary. It's all great. You all want to get there as soon as you can. You certainly want to get off ConfigMan 2007. You want to get up to the current technology. I'll talk about how you get there in the next presentation, not the next one we have, but my next one later on this morning. But you do want to get there. A lot of cool things in there. It's a very easy upgrade process, as you'll see in the upgrade session we have. But a lot of cool things there that can help you out. Everybody uses OSD for the most part, so a lot of cool things in there you saw. Everybody has distribution points. That may work. The role-based administration for reporting, that certainly is a key thing for you. So a lot of cool things there. I'm out of time, but if you have questions during your break, come on up and chat. Ask me that. If you have any feedback you want to give me, like your whatever you told me to, the endpoint protection resultant client settings. Come and let me know that so I can write it down and get it off to the product group. With that, we have a break for 10 minutes. Okay, you have a break until 10:15. And thank you all, and I'll be around again all day for chatting.
Thank you, Wally. So, ich will noch kurz etwas sagen. T-Shirts habt ihr vielleicht schon gesehen. Am Abend, bevor wir ins Apero gehen,